Hello everyone, and welcome back to Limbus Company. The Pequod crew just released, and I'm sure you're eagerly curious as to what they actually do, as am I, so let's not waste too many words and immediately jump right into checking them out, starting with Yi Song, the first mate of the Pequod. Skill 1, Impale, 3 to 11, so it's an 11. It's an 11. 11 is fine. On use, gain 2 poise count. On hit with the second coin, you inflict 1 bind and 2 bleed. It's a pretty good skill just because of the bind alone. Like, bind is a really good status effect, so just having a really easy way to inflict bind is already pretty good. Especially for skill 1. Skill 2, Relentless Stabbing. 2 coins. 4 to 12. 4 to 12 isn't very good. Not at all. On use, gain 2 poise count. At 5 plus poise, clash power plus 3. So even with this extra clash power, it's still a 4 to 15, which isn't good. Not for a skill 2. If this was like plus 1 extra, so it would be 4 to 16, it would be okay, but as a 15, it's not going to be able to clash with certain things that you want it to. Skill 1 gains poise, it's fine. Second coin, 1 bleed, and on crit, reuses this coin for up to 3 times. So if he has a ton of poise, and you're constantly critting with this, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Which is probably why it's so low coin power. Because if this thing keeps going off, it's going to get really high. I guess they want you to basically one-sided attack with this skill, not really clash with it. But even still, being less than 16 isn't very good for a skill 2. I guess he has a 2-star, so it's generally fine. Skill 3, Ambush. 4 to 16, at least this one hits 16. On use, gain 5 poise. At 7 plus poise, gain plus 1 coin power, so it goes up to 18. That's okay. It's pretty good for a skill 3 when it comes to clashing power. On hit, gain plus 2 poise count. On hit, inflict 4 bleed and plus 6 bleed count. One thing that's interesting to note about this skill 3 is, unlike his other 2 skills, it actually has a net positive poise count. So if you're constantly critting with all of your coins, this one actually, well, technically it's neutral, but just because of the fact that it's on his first coin that gives him the poise count instead of the on use, it makes it so that you would actually still have poise count at the end of your second coin's crit. So it's more likely that you'd end up with extra poise at the end of using this skill than the other ones. Defense skill 10 to 13. Or I mean 3 to 13, not 10. What am I saying? It's okay, I guess. Like, 14's usually the average, but he has a 2-star, so I'll give him that at least. On to the passive. The first mate's Harpoon. On crit, inflict 2 more bleed potency with a skill, 6 times per turn. So just more bleed whenever you crit. Okay, whatever, sure. Fine. The first mate's Acumen for the support passive. On crit, one ally with the most poise inflicts 2 additional bleed potency with a skill. So, same exact thing, just extra bleed. Could be okay. I'm pretty sure most of poise identities have bleed on them, so it's fine. It's fine. All around, he seems pretty good. His skill 3's got good clash potential. He doesn't really gain a lot of poise potency, though. It's just 2 on the skill 2 and then 5 on the skill 3. So, to get this clash power, you'd need to use your skill 3 to get the 5 poise, and to get this 7 plus poise, to get the extra coin power, you need to use a skill 2 and then a skill 3. And on top of that, you need to not crit at all, otherwise you risk losing all of that poise, and then you don't get the bonuses whatsoever. So that's not really an issue with the identity itself, that's more an issue with poise. But he seems to gain enough poise count with the +2 and +2 on use, and then the +2 on hit. So all of his skills gain poise count. So as long as you're not stacking up the poise too high, he should be able to at least maintain it. And then he'd be able to get the bonuses from the coin power and the clash power. So, and then once you do have enough poise, you can use the skill 2 and then get a ton of extra damage with the reusing coins. He seems like he's pretty good. Pretty good for damage. Okay for clashing with the skill 3. And he sort of semi-fuels bleeding. In fact, with his passive, he does a lot of bleeding. Because it's 2 more bleed potency, which means all of these are actually like, instead of 2 bleed, it's 4 bleed. Instead of 1 bleed, it's 3 bleed. Instead of 4 bleed, it's 6 bleed. So he does inflict a lot of bleed potency with his passive. Which is okay. He does pretty well into bleed comps. As for his stats, he's above average with speed, slightly, 4 to 7. This is pretty low. Not the highest health, and lower defense level. So yeah, he's definitely a damage dealer type character, that's for sure. Meant for damage, not really clashing or winning things. Which there's nothing wrong with that. He's pretty good. Is he better than the other Yi songs? Specifically the 2 stars? Probably. Yeah, I'd say he's definitely better than the other 2 stars. He's definitely worth running over them, I think. Alright, moving on to Heathcliff, the Pequod Harpooneer, aka Pequod. How you say it? I don't know. Skill 1, Stock Prey, 3 to 11. Same as Yi-Song, it's okay. Not the best rolling skill 1, but it works. On use, gain 4 poise. 4? Wow, that's a lot. Gain +5 aggro to the skill slot next turn, and inflict 2 bleed on the second coin. That is a high amount of poise count for a skill 1. And it's only 2 coins, so no matter what, this is a net positive of 1 poise count. Because let's say, hypothetically, both of the coins crit. That uses up 2 poise count, and then you lose 1 poise count because the turn ends. Which means there would still be an extra poise count, so no matter what, this skill gives you an extra 1 poise count. Every single time. Which is honestly how they should give poise count to like every ID that has a skill like this, where its basic entire purpose is just giving you poise count. They should have it be at least a net positive of 1 every single time you use it. So, skill 2, Snag Harpoon, 4 to 16. That is a good rolling skill 2. 16 is basically what you want, all the time, every time. Gain +5 aggro to this skill slot next turn. On use, gain 1 poise for every 3 bleed on target, max of 10. On the second coin, if it crits, inflict bleed count equal to 1/3 of the bleed potency on target. Max of 10. Weird. That's weird that it's on the second coin. And I guess technically speaking, you are more likely to crit on the second coin than you are the third coin. And if you're running him in a heavy bleed comp, he's going to be gaining a lot of poise from this skill, and then he's going to be critting a lot, so it's okay. Needs a lot of bleed support for this skill to actually do anything, though. Because if the target doesn't have any bleed, this on crit does nothing. If he doesn't have any bleed, you don't gain any poise. All you do is get the aggro. And it's just a decent rolling skill, so needs bleed to be worth a damn, but other than that, it's okay. And skill 3, the Sever Knot. 4 to 16 again. At 3 envy res, clash power +1, 4 +1 coin power, and 6 +1 coin power. So that goes up to 25? If you get a 6 plus envy absolute resonance, it goes up to 25 clash power. That is pretty substantial, but it does require heavy envy team, so... And one thing I have noticed about, like, dedicating an entire team to a specific sin type, it severely limits your ego usage. Which ego is honestly more impactful than this coin power will ever be. So, like, it's fun. It's fun to dedicate your entire team to a single sin resource, but it's not exactly the best thing to do, because you'll be, unless there's an ego like, for example, Faust's Hexnail, which is entirely just envy. Dedicating your entire team to a specific sin will never really fuel ego very well. Other than Hexnail, of course, because Hexnail is basically the only ego that you actually fuel. And with on hits, with the first 2 coins, you do a ton of bleed depending on your health. And the 4th coin, on crit, deal 50% extra damage. Kind of a basic skill. Very simple, I think. You just want it in lots of envy. So it's okay. It's fine. It's suitable. And then defense skill, counter, payback. On use, gain +5 aggro to this skill slot next turn. Combat start, gain defense level up for every poise on self. Max of 10. You know, generally speaking, I don't really like how most of the defense skills work. And one of the reasons why counters are so bad is simply because they're not defensive in the slightest. You take the damage, and then you just do damage back. There is no defense to it whatsoever. But adding an effect like this, where it's a combat start, gain defense level up, or like protection or something like that, then it is actually defensive slightly, because you're going to be taking less damage when you use this. As long as you have poise on yourself, that is. So I think pretty much every single counter in the game should have a line like this. Otherwise, they're just, why is it a defense skill? Why is it called a defense skill? It doesn't defend at all. It doesn't do any defending. Anyways, passive. Mutilated Tattoos. Gain 1 offense level up and 1 defense level up next turn every time an ally, including this unit, is attacked. Gain 2 of each instead if the ally is from the Pequod. Max of 9. Deal more damage the less HP this unit has. Deal 1% more damage for every 1% missing HP. I like this line about the dealing more damage the less HP that it has. It's always cool to have something like that. And the offense level and defense level up is basically the same stuff that the middle Dawn and Immersault have. Which is fitting because technically he's the middle. So it's like the same passive because they're from the same group, so yeah. And then Desperation. 1 ally with the highest max HP deals more pierce damage at less HP. Deal 0.3% more damage for every 1% missing HP, max of 30. You know, it's interesting that this one doesn't have a max, but this one does. Kinda weird. Anyways, general synopsis. He is very tanky, by the way. 235, 45 defense level. Super tanky. Super tanky. But yeah, general synopsis. Despite the gimmick of him having two envy skills, like, as I was saying, even with dedicating your entire team building to a specific sin resource, it's the same problem arises when you have two skills of the same sin type. Because just take for example this guy right here. He literally doesn't fuel any of his egos at all. He partially fuels them because pretty much all of them need envy, but I don't think any of them need pride, and only a few need wrath. So he can't fuel any of his egos by himself. He needs somebody else. And if you're dedicating your entire team to envy, well, you're gonna be even less likely to be able to fuel those egos. Other than that, though, he seems pretty, like, generally average. He's a pretty good tank. He's basically a tank that has some bleed synergy. That's basically it. Like, he doesn't even really have that much poise on him. It's just the poise count on this, and then the poise potency on this, and then that's all the poise. So he's basically just a tank that does more damage the more he's injured. And then he's got some bleed synergy, and that's basically it. So he's okay. He's not bad, I guess. He's technically the first tank Heathcliff has, unless he counts Sun Shower, but Sun Shower is a little bit different. I wouldn't really consider Sun Shower to be a tank, because he doesn't really want to be taking hits, because if you take too many hits with Sun Shower, he's going to hit negative 45 sanity, like, instantly. So this is more like actual tank type character. And that's basically his thing. He's a tank. Which is fitting because how Pequod was in the fight. So yeah, that's basically it. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna pull for these guys and then build a team and get right back to you.
이상이라 부르게. 피쿼드의 1등 항해사를 맡고 있지. 밧줄 꽉 잡아라. 가라앉기 싫으면.
First try, baby. Thank you, 3-star guaranteed Season 3 extraction. Alright, so I made a general team here, basically encompassing focusing on envy as much as possible. Again, just like the middle. In fact, they're even here in the team. And as for support passives, I tried to basically focus on bleed as much as I could, which is basically just KK Honglu and KK Ryoshu. But it's going to be kind of a little bit hard to actually fuel their passives because they need lust, and the only lust we have is with Faust. In fact, like, already, just right off the bat, you can already tell that, like, focusing entirely on one resource basically means you can't really use egos reliably. Like, we fuel envy really well, we fuel pride really well, but everything else, not really. We get some wrath, a little bit of lust, a little bit of sloth, a little bit of gluttony, and absolutely no gloom. So, all of these egos, fluid sac, pursuance, Dawn Telepole, can't use them. So it doesn't completely invalidate egos, but it does make it harder to actually use them. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's see how this goes. Should go pretty well, I think.
저 부표처럼 흔들리는 놈이 제1 사냥감이겠네요. 가서 끝장내죠.
Trying my best to get the envy res going right now, as much as possible.
공격 능력 평가?
Basically all RNG just to get that.
제법 지쳤나 보.
상황이 좋다고 할 수는 없지만 여러분은 하실 수 있을
So
거예요.
close. So close. So close. Not enough though. Not quite enough. Look at this though. Next turn. Maybe not next turn, but the next stage.
효과적이네요. 이 방식을 기억하는 게 좋겠어요.
I like how Yusong has a super jump with that. It's kind of funny.
위기에 강하다 그런 거야.
Alright, here we go.
사냥이 성공적이었네요. 이 흐름
Never mind.
사냥을 끝내러 가보죠.
Not here we go, because Yusong doesn't have a freaking... an envy skill. Next turn. We'll get it next turn.
승리기 딱 한 방 먹였어.
제법 지쳤나 보.
I really find that super jump to be hilarious. Oh, it's so dumb.
사냥이 성공적이었네요.
Alright, now we got, look at this. Look at this board. Now we're talking. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is just so good.
시범을 보이지. 가까워진다. 항의 끝.
That's what we've been waiting for. That's what we've been waiting for.
제법 지쳤나 보.
You see, though, this is like the main problem with focusing on just a single sin resource. By the time you get the absolute resonance for it to get all the bonuses, the battle's already done at that point. Oh yeah, I leveled up. Let's go. But yeah, it's like, what are you supposed to do? It's an interesting gimmick, don't get me wrong, it's an interesting gimmick, but it's really hard to pull off, and by the time you do pull it off, the battle's already won. And it has the negative drawback of being very difficult to actually fuel egos. So it's kind of neutral with me, to be honest, just because it's a fun gimmick. It's a fun gimmick, but it's not a very good gimmick, you know? And like you could use it if you want, but I wouldn't personally really lean that heavily into it. Just because honestly, because it's hard to fuel egos. Like, egos are the strongest thing in this game, so if you're sacrificing them for just just a little bit of extra coin power. It's not really worth it. Going this heavily to get the 6+ Envy Absolute Resonance is never really worth it. At most, maybe the 4+, but yeah. The actual IDs themselves, though, not talking about the gimmick, they're pretty good. They're okay. I think Yi Song is the more interesting of the two, simply because Heathcliff is just like a pure tank ID. He's all about tanking, and that's basically it, so he's not really that interesting, but Yi Song is a little bit more interesting because he's actually got interesting mechanics with the reusing the coin on the second skill. And then it's just the animation on the skill 3 is funny to me. I really like that animation. But yeah, I'm gonna put these guys on my company, so here's my friend code if you want to add me, and you'll be able to use these new identities without having to pull for them. Just to try them out for yourselves, see if you actually want to pull them or whatever. And that's basically all I have for you today, so yeah. See ya tomorrow or whatever.